Have you ever wondered what it takes to save a life in the wild? Brace yourself for an extraordinary tale of courage, friendship, and the unbreakable bond between man and animal. The rain had been falling for weeks. Heavy gray clouds smothered the skies above the endless forests of the Far East, and quiet streams had turned into raging torrents. Roads dissolved into mudslides, and even the strongest paths through the taiga vanished underwater. For those who called this wild land their workplace, every day became a fight against the elements. Among them was Michael Sokolov, a veteran wildlife conservationist, who had spent more than 30 years patrolling this vast wilderness. For Michael, the taiga wasn't just his job. It was his home, his destiny, and the great conversation of his life. Every ridge, every river, every paw print in the mud was part of a story he had dedicated his life to protect. By his side, always, was Frost, a loyal white Labrador. Calm yet alert, brave yet gentle, Frost was more than just a companion. He was a guardian, a friend, and at times, the first one to notice when danger or wonder lurked nearby. On ordinary days, they traveled together in an old off-road truck, driving along forest tracks, checking animal trails, recording signs of deer, bears, and the elusive Amur tiger. But these were not ordinary days. The rain had transformed the land into a battlefield of water and stone. That afternoon, as thunder rolled overhead and lightning cut across the clouds, Michael gripped the steering wheel, guiding the truck along a road barely visible under rushing streams. The windshield wipers clattered frantically, struggling to keep up with the downpour. Frost sat upright in the back seat, ears twitching, amber eyes locked on the roaring river that surged just beyond the road. He had that look, the kind that told Michael something was wrong. Then, without warning, Frost barked sharply, his body stiff with urgency. He pressed his nose to the window, whining, as if he had spotted something that couldn't wait. Michael slammed on the brakes, heart pounding, and leaned forward to peer through the rain. But beyond the sheets of water and mist, he saw nothing but waves. Before he could react, Frost launched himself at the door, pushed it open with his weight, and leapt into the storm. "Frost," Michael shouted, his voice drowned by the roar of the river. He scrambled out after the dog, slipping on the soaked earth. What he saw froze him in place. Out in the middle of the raging current, barely visible through the spray, a small striped body was struggling, its movements weak, frantic, desperate. It was a tiger cub. Its orange coat was plastered against its frail frame, stripes flickering as it flailed in the water. Its eyes, wide with fear, locked for a moment on the shore, then disappeared beneath the surface. And Frost was already in the river. The Labrador fought the torrent with every ounce of strength, his body cutting through the water like an arrow. Michael ran along the bank, shouting encouragement, his heart in his throat. He knew the river was deadly. Even for a strong swimmer, it was a gamble against death. Frost reached the cub just as it resurfaced, gasping weakly. Without hesitation, he clamped his jaws gently around the back of its neck, the way a mother might carry her young. The river seized them both, spinning them in the current, slamming them against hidden rocks. But Frost refused to let go. Step by step, stroke by stroke, he forced his way toward the bank. Michael splashed into the shallows, waist deep in the freezing water, arms outstretched. "Come on, boy. Almost there." Minutes stretched like hours. Then, with one final surge, Frost broke free of the current and staggered onto the muddy bank, the cub still dangling from his jaws. Michael lunged forward, pulling both dog and tiger to safety. His chest heaved with relief as he laid the cub on the ground. It was trembling violently, its breath shallow and broken. Frost collapsed beside it, exhausted, his sides heaving. But he refused to release his grip until the cub was fully on land. Michael wrapped them both in a thick towel from the truck, his hands shaking. Without wasting another second, he bundled them into the back seat and raced toward the nearest wildlife rehabilitation center. At the center, veterinarians rushed to action. The cub, drenched in mud and water, was placed on a table where its heartbeat and lungs were checked. For a tense moment, silence hung in the room, until the tiger cub let out a weak, raspy cry and blinked its eyes open. A collective sigh of relief filled the air. Frost was examined too. Apart from minor scratches and exhaustion, he was unharmed. Michael knelt beside him, stroking his wet fur, whispering words of gratitude. The veterinarians assured him, the cub will live, but it will need special care in the coming days. Michael volunteered immediately. Together, he and Frost would help raise the cub within the controlled environment of the center. At first, the cub was terrified. It crouched in the far corner of its enclosure, eyes wary, every muscle tense. Frost, however, lay calmly nearby, his presence steady and unthreatening. He let out low, soothing rumbles in his chest, a canine lullaby. Days passed. Then one evening, the cub crept forward cautiously, sniffed Frost's fur, and rubbed its small head against the Labrador's side. That was the beginning of a bond no one could have predicted. They became inseparable. In the daylight, they chased each other across the grass, tumbling and rolling like siblings. At night, Michael would find them curled together in the straw, the cub's striped body pressed against the dog's snowy coat, both of them breathing softly in unison. Michael often watched them in silence, his chest tight with emotions he couldn't put into words. He realized that Frost had become not just a rescuer but a teacher, showing the cub that trust and friendship could exist even in the harshest of worlds. As months passed, the cub grew stronger. Its coat gleamed with health, its muscles firmed, and its instincts sharpened. Trainers introduced it to larger enclosures, where it practiced stalking, chasing, and pouncing on suspended prey. From behind the fence, Frost always watched, barking encouragement, tail wagging as if cheering on a teammate. At first clumsy, the cub gradually grew more precise, more confident, until its movements carried the unmistakable power of a wild predator. Michael recorded every step with pride and dread. He knew what was coming, the day of release. A year later, the cub was no longer small. It had become a magnificent young tiger, its stride regal, its eyes filled with untamed fire. The rehabilitation center prepared carefully. A transport cage was readied, and arrangements were made to release the tiger deep in the mountains, where the Amur tigers still roamed. On the morning of departure, Michael brought Frost to the enclosure one last time. The Labrador bounded forward, licking the tiger's face eagerly. The young tiger pressed against him in return, rumbling with affection. For a long moment, the two friends nuzzled and played as though unwilling to let go. Michael's throat tightened. He crouched beside them, resting his hand on Frost's back. "We've done all we could," he whispered. The cage door opened. The tiger stepped inside, pausing only once to glance back. Its gaze lingered on Frost, a deep, silent farewell. Then the gate shut. The journey to the release site was quiet, heavy with anticipation. At last, the truck reached a wide valley bordered by forested hills. Rangers opened the cage. The tiger leaped out, landing gracefully on the earth. It was born to walk. For a moment it stood still, breathing in the sense of freedom. Then it lifted its head and unleashed a powerful roar that echoed across the valley. On the hillside, Frost barked in response, a final call to his friend. Michael placed a hand on the dog's shoulders, his eyes misting. "We gave it life," he murmured. As the tiger disappeared into the wilderness, the memory of that stormy day by the river lived on, a reminder that courage, compassion, and friendship can change the fate of even the wildest of creatures. Dear viewers, what do you think of this incredible story? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this tale of bravery and loyalty, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more. Till next time.